When he walked in, she was already in her nightgown. She told him she'd taken 2 Seconal pills, which are sedatives, and she planned to take 2 more before bed. He stayed for just a few minutes to make sure she was okay, and unfortunately, that would end up being the last time he saw her alive. Around 8:50, Mary's landlady thought about stopping by with some ice cream. She knew that Mary was still upset about the canceled trip to Pennsylvania, but when she got close to her apartment, everything was dark and quiet, so she figured Mary had already gone to bed for the night. A couple of important things to know about Mary: that evening she was wearing a rayon nightgown, which is a material that is highly flammable. Her son mentioned that she had undergone back surgery in the past, which made it difficult for her to move quickly or get up from deep chairs, and she was also a smoker and known to have a cigarette before going to bed. So to investigators, it seemed entirely possible that Mary had taken her sedatives, sat down in her chair, accidentally fallen asleep, and either dropped her cigarette or an ash, which may have ignited her nightgown. But even if that was the case, there were still some questions that no one could answer, like how did a fire get hot enough and last long enough to reduce her body to ash without setting the rest of the apartment on fire? And how did no one smell anything burning? The local police actually decided to get the FBI involved. They collected everything they thought would help, like sections of the rug that were soaked with a greasy substance, bone fragments, bits of fabric and upholstery, a small piece of metal they believed came from a cigarette lighter, a few teeth, and the remainder of the ash. They sent it all to the FBI lab in Washington, D.C., and the FBI spent 3 weeks examining the evidence and found no signs of accelerants, no gasoline, or any chemicals that could have started the fire. But they noted that if such substances were present, it was entirely possible that the intense heat could have burned them away completely. And I know I mentioned it earlier, but the greasy residue on the rug was tested and confirmed again to be melted human fat. After their investigation, the FBI concluded that Mary took her sedatives, sat down with a cigarette, and likely fell asleep. The cigarette or an ash could have dropped and ignited her highly flammable nightgown, and her body fat melted, acting like the fuel that kept the fire going. The FBI explained that in rare cases like this one, the fire often stays contained to the body, with heat rising and causing smoke damage near the ceiling while leaving most of the rest of the room untouched, which is kind of why Mary's apartment had that smoke damage ring high on the walls, but everything else below it was completely fine. The FBI's theory makes sense if you understand the wick effect. If you don't know what that is, the wick effect happens when a person's body catches fire and their own body fat melts and soaks into fabric or furniture. That body fat then fuels a slow, contained fire that burns the body severely while leaving the surrounding objects mostly untouched. There's actually been research on this, including a master's thesis by Angie Christensen, which explains that most experiments using animals like pigs haven't been able to recreate the level of burning seen in cases like this, especially in the way that bones are destroyed. But one possible reason for this is that many of the victims of the wick effect are older, and older people tend to have more body fat and lower bone density, which can make their bodies burn faster and more completely. Crematorium workers have also noticed that it takes less time to cremate someone who is older compared to someone who is younger. After the investigation, some of Mary's ashes were buried next to her husband in Pennsylvania, while the rest stayed with her son and his family in St. Petersburg. A lot of people like to say this was a case of spontaneous human combustion, but that's really unlikely. In Mary's case, what happened can probably be explained by science like the wick effect. The FBI's explanation is the most likely, but honestly, we'll never know for sure exactly what happened that night.